Hey, Monica, did you know it's now even easier to listen to Round the Hay Bale podcast?
What? Really? How easy?
That's right. All you have to do is say, Alexa, play Round the Hay Bale podcast.
Playing Round the Hay Bale podcast on Apple Music.
Ooh, we're really fancy now.
Tune in to Round the Hay Bale every Monday at 9 a.m. Central Time.
Grab a cup of joe and let's gather round that hay bale. With your hosts, Anne from Andale Homestead, Cayce from Ormsby Farms, Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch, and Sandi from Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona. Here they are. Hey, y'all, hey.
Y'all, hey, I'm so glad that you're here. This is Anne from Andale Homestead.
Hey, everyone, it's Cayce over at Ormsby Farms.
And hello, Sandi from Suburban Homesteader, Wyoming, Arizona.
And I'm Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch. Thank you guys for joining us on episode 10 of season 5 with Round the Hay Bale. We are talking about to till or not to till today. And so we have a very special guest here in the studio. We're super excited to welcome her. We have with us Carmen from Jesus Loving Homesteader. Welcome in, Carmen.
Well, Carmen's having just a teeny bit of some sound issues, but I'm sure she'll be right in. We can hear her very well. Unfortunately, we'll be back in just a little bit. So on the till to no till, while we're waiting for Carmen from Jesus Loving Homesteader, which we're thrilled to have her. Sandi, you and I were talking a little bit about till or no till. And I grew up in a farming family that's used to going behind a tractor and planting. And you do not till anymore. How's that working?
Well, for a lot of years, I had a rototiller and I tilled. And then I started reading books, watching videos, seeing what was happening to the soil. I really became interested in the microorganisms in the soil. And I thought, I'm just going to test it. I'm just going to go and not till and see what happens. And I didn't have to do that work of tilling. And I had beautiful crops. And I haven't tilled since then. I probably would till if it was a new patch. I was going to do a new garden area just so I could break it up a little bit because who knows what compaction. But for the most part, I never till anymore. And I think Carmen is back with us.
Yes.
She's back.
Yes, I am.
That's wonderful. And so, Carmen, you don't till in your garden.
No. When I first started gardening, I kind of just did like what I already kind of knew. So I was like, okay, so I'm going to get some raised beds. I'm going to go to the store. I'm going to buy all this bagged soil and I'm going to just miracle grow everything. So after a while, that kind of worked for a little bit, but I ran into so many issues. Like I kept running into like super dense soil. I kept having seeds that they would germinate, but they wouldn't pop up out of the soil. I was having plants that got this miracle grow high and they got all big and lush and then they looked like they needed more and then they needed more. And there was something like, it was just this time where we just kept buying stuff. I felt like the entire garden season, we were just buying more things to try to fix the soil or fix the plants. And then we started looking deeper. I went into a whole YouTube rabbit thing. And I found the Back to Eden Gardening documentary. And I was like, okay, so it was about this man. And he pretty much just used compost, manure, and wood chips. Like that was the way he gardened. He pretty much covered all of his soil, his whole garden with wood chips. And part of the reason he did that is because he had some medical issues to where the tilling was just not possible for him. There was a lot of things that were very strenuous that he was unable to do. but he loved to garden. He loved to grow food. And as I saw, I knew right away that this was not going to be, okay, I'm going to throw wood chips on the ground and my garden's going to be great this year. And a lot of the time people have that kind of mentality where they're like, okay, I've been tilling for 20 years. I'm going to try something new. I'm just going to throw all these layers of random stuff in the ground. And then this year it's going to be great. And then unfortunately, the first year of back to Eden gardening or no-till method or hugelkultur, usually the first year is probably the hardest and probably the worst. And it discourages people. And they're like, well, why are my plants yellow? Why is this not working? Why is that not working? It takes time because your soil is actually shocked. Your soil is enduring something new, just like you're enduring something new. So it takes a little bit of time. That kind of happened to us where we put the compost, we put the manure, we put the cardboard first. We put the cardboard first because we had grass coming every year. I mean, it was just what it is. A lot of natives. We've got a lot of birds in our area. So dropping a lot of seeds. So we put a lot of cardboard and we did some compost. And then my husband did not play around. He put probably like 6 inches of wood chips. But that was because we're calling I like things that are free, y'all. I like things that are free. I don't like to spend money. We just can't. We just cannot. I have kids. So I was calling every local tree arborist in the area. Every single one that I could possibly find, I was calling them. I tried Chip Drop. There is a thing called Chip Drop where you can sign up and they send you wood chips, but it was not working for me. Nobody was coming. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to do this myself. And I'm going to call everyone. And someone ended up contacting me back, sending us a drop. We went wheelbarrow by wheelbarrow, putting it in the garden. And then I needed more. So one time I was driving and I saw these people chipping wood. They were cutting trees and chipping it right then and there. These people did not speak English at all. I went in there and I was like pointing at the wood chips and then I pointed at me and I'm like, hey, I want that, and then the guy's looking at me like, what? Like, why? Like, so I ended up going on my Google Translator on my phone real quick and writing in there, I want those wood chips. I'll give you my address, drop them off. Awesome. And I literally just showed him and he starts smiling and he like gives me a thumbs up. And I wrote down my address, gave it to him. And sure enough, about 2 hours later, they dropped a whole load of wood chips. And we ended up doing like 6 inches on top of our whole garden. And with that, guys, and when I say wood chips, I'm not talking about just straight up bark, like the hardwood pieces. If you're getting an arborist mulch, an arborist wood chips, you're getting leaves. You're getting all sorts of just natural material from whatever they chip. They're getting all sorts of stuff that's going to break down because just like a compost, you're going to need your dry, you're going to need your green, you're going to need that to break down. That is not going to happen with just straight up wood chips. So it took time, but our garden, after probably about 2 garden seasons, I finally got it to kind of where I wanted it and where my plants were happy. So it does take time. Don't get discouraged. Don't just be like, this isn't working. This is terrible. Never doing this again. You take time, do your research, follow people who are doing this, ask those questions. And if you have to be a crazy person on the side of the road, talking to people, speaking a whole nother language, Google Translate is awesome. And you know what? It is totally worth it.
That's awesome. And so, yeah, Sandi, I was going to say.
On my gardens, I don't use the wood chips. I live up in the north. It's very dry. It's very windy. And the use of wood chips here is hard because they break down so slowly. We don't have humidity. We don't have enough rain to break them down. And so what wood chips would do here is they would start to take the nitrogen out of the soil. So I use leaf mold. I had put it on Facebook. People drop off bags and bags of leaves for me. And I can either put it right onto my soil right then, or a lot of times I'll just put a little bit of water in there and close it up and let it sit all winter. So it just makes it into the compost. And for me, it works perfect. And so then I don't ever have to till.
That's awesome,
That is
Cayce.
awesome.
I just want to say first, because listening to this is so interesting. Like I can visually see Carmen Google translating on her phone to people for wood chips. Like that. That is just something that I can definitely see happen, and it's a great idea also. Now, for me, now this is I'm one of the newbier gardeners on the panel. Is I'm a tiller. I think we were talking about before we went on. My main garden is tilled. Now, I do have a couple raised beds that I totally was watching all of Carmen's videos and learned how to hugelkultur. And I will say that those did take, it's probably this year is the first year that they're actually starting to look like the plants want to live and not die. So it did take, I think this is my third year. But I'm a tiller. I guess I watched tilling people videos first on YouTube, and I said that's the way I'm going to do it, and it's stuck in my head now. I think both Anne's husband and Monica's husband share the same brain with me that that's how it's done. It's
That's
tilled.
right.
It's how it needs to be. I'm also a ground cover person, which is very controversial for some gardeners. So I'm a tiller. I like to till. I like to till the stuff up early March in my garden, let it sit, and then ground cover it up. But hearing this, how easy it is to start the Back to Eden and start the hugelkultur, I just may, try something different coming up in the year. What about you, Monica? We know how Eric feels, but how does Monica feel about tilling or not tilling?
I have seen a lot of things where it talks about how really good your soil is if you don't till. And I know from experience with tilling for the past 10 years, that when we plant here so I live in Northeast Texas, if you don't know, if you guys out there listening don't know. And so when I plant, and so does Carmen, right? So we live really close, which is kind of cool because she does a completely different style than I have, and her plants thrive. And over the years, my plants have done wonderfully, but I've noticed something. So I know that it can happen for both of you. So if you're in an area, there's somebody does one method, it doesn't mean you can't do the other one and still have a great garden, because we both have wonderful gardens most of the time. This year doesn't count for me. But I've noticed over the seasons, that when we plant, for instance, I am a hill girl, right? So when I plant my tomatoes, I plant them deep, but then I hill them up, and then I make this little trench around them so that the water can kind of pull up around it. But the problem is, because I locally water a lot of my plants, that everything gets so dusty and dry, that when you water on a dry day, you just push that soil away from the root of the base of the plant. And so I have to pile my stuff up really high because my soil is so loose. And I've been reading and I've been wondering if that's not because I till so much. So if I had more compacted yet aerated soil, maybe that makes sense. If my soil was a little denser in a good way, maybe I would be able to not have so much runoff. Because when I was reading about the no-till method, I was reading that when you don't till, that your soil doesn't erode as quickly, if that makes sense. I had read about that, and that's what I told Eric. I said, I want that, because we have to build our in-ground bed. We basically build our garden. We raise it up about 18 inches almost every year, from all the compost we put into it. It's all compost that we just make here at the ranch, but it is compost nonetheless. And we're building that soil up each year. And very slowly but surely, that soil is eroding out of that. If I kept all that soil, we'd have 5-foot high garden area. But I know I lose that soil. And I just wonder if we didn't have the tilling done each year, if my soil wouldn't be healthier in that sense. And so I am really trying to advocate for no-till. And this year we tried no-till, and Eric is literally going to have a brain explosion. Every time he looks at that garden, he gets so frustrated. But I feel like it's a good idea. And I just wanted to try something different, even though I had success. I wanted to try something different to see if I could do it better. Right? Sandi, I need some help with this, because I'm also at the point where I want to just start chopping everything and dropping it and letting it kind of go back in, but I don't know where to go now.
Well, I think when you're deciding tilling or no till, I think you have to ask yourself some questions. Why are you tilling? Are you tilling because your ground is hard? Are you tilling because you think you have to make the manures and compost go down deeper? Are you trying to bury weeds? What is the goal of tilling? Like, I think that you're much better off when you're adding all that compost, Monica. Why don't you just leave it on there? Don't till it in. And next year, when as you do this through the summer and next year, see the difference between the tilled gardens that you've always had and just letting it, every time it rains, that goodness just seeps down into the soil. And the earthworms come up and drag things down because that's their job. So let them do their job instead of tilling them. And, sometimes you kill your worms, sometimes you kill microorganisms, different things, and just see, or maybe do half your garden one way, half your garden the other way.
Well, I think that was the point of tilling originally for Eric. It's always been that you put the compost on, you let it sit for a little bit, and then you till it into the garden. You're bringing that compost down. Like, it won't do it on its own. So you have to do it for it. Like nature isn't enough to do it because you don't have enough time, right? So you put it in here in Texas, you put the compost in like January, February, and then you have to hurry it along. So you let it sit for about 2 or 3 weeks or whenever you feel like it, I guess. And then you go out there and you till it in. You rake it in and you kind of get in there and you till that into the soil, the old soil and you're putting the new one. Now, I tested my soil a few years ago. When we had our test kits from the test kit place that we had a few years ago. What was it, Cayce?
MySoilTesting.com.
There you go. It's literally called My Soil Testing. Okay. Anyway, so we did our My Soil testing, and I used regular like old soil, and I used composted soil. I actually tested 2 different areas of my garden, and because I bought a separate test just so I could compare freshly tilled, composted ground versus old soil, and literally they were the same. Like, they were so close to being similar. And I'm like, we got good ground, even the old stuff. And so I use old dirt all the time. Like, if I want if I put something in a pot, I take soil, like old dirt from my garden, and throw it into a pot. I don't just, go buy new soil. Ain't nobody got time for that. You got to go get it from your garden. You have money for that. So I just pull it from my garden, and I use old dirt all the time. But, yeah, I think that the idea was always to till it in. I don't think we need to do that. And like you said, you don't really need to do that. So,
and so, Carmen, when you are using and doing your garden as the Back to Eden style, do you make like rows? I mean, ours looks like a miniature field, like you would see in a farmer's field. We have rows that go up. We have ground cover weed barrier. And we have tilled everything, stirred everything all up in there real good, and put a little natural fertilizer right down the middle of each row and cover it up. And that's when we put our seeds in and all those kinds of things. And it brings me comfort to see the garden in that style. I mean, it's crazy, but I just enjoy rows. Do you have rows?
Okay, so I don't have to that extent. So the way my brain works is I really think I'm just more of a more creative style. So I want you to walk into the garden and have an experience, as silly as that sounds. But when you open the gate, you're going to see a tunnel, and that's going to be tomatoes on one side. You're going to see coneflowers, black-eyed Susans. You're going to see some green beans on one side. You're going to see tomatillos growing up it. Then you're going to go through, you're going to see a keyhole garden, which is a raised bed. And that is going to be full of lettuces and a lot of the greens like cabbages, broccolis, different things, because that's more in the shade. So then when you go to the left from that, you're going to see my children's garden bed. And then you're going to see 3 other raised beds. You're having an experience walking. I think that's why people come over. They think my garden, they're shocked that it's the size it is, because when I record it, it looks huge. And I have a feeling that's because of the way I have it kind of mixed about. But when you come here, I mean, it's still big, but it's nowhere near what it looks like on film. We cram so much in there, and our soil has gotten to the point, praise the Lord, that it it's just good. Like, it's great soil. Like, if you go to my yard right now, the right side has all of our animals, and that soil is compact. And there's grass patches, random spots. I mean, they did a number on it. The middle of my yard is more our kids. So there's lots of grass, beautiful grass. Then you go to the garden, you can literally dig with your hand. And I mean, dig with your hand to the point where it's not gross soil either. It just feels like you're taking like bagged compost out of the ground, and you can plant whatever in there with your hand. I very rarely use a shovel because the soil's just to that point, and it's the entire garden that's like that. It's gotten to the point where it's not just the raised beds, it's not just the hills, it's the entire garden. So because I've found out that we're finally at a place where our entire garden has like fertile, amazing soil, I plant things everywhere, like everywhere. Like, so like if I'm walking and I see like this, I don't know, 4 square foot area where there's nothing in it, I'll pretty much just take my hand, dig down a little bit, move the mulch, wood chips, and I'll just put seeds in there, or I'll put plants in there, and I'll put like a little cage, like a chicken wire, just to tell me that I planted something there. So don't go walking on it. And then once it grows up, like, I don't know, probably like 7-8 inches, I'll take the cage off, and then I'll just leave it there. So it is definitely not rose, but I've gotten to a point where the things in the raised beds are more kind of in what society would deem in order. So like one side of one of my raised beds is all onions, and then the other side is garlic. And then you go to the other raised bed, it's all asparagus and even chamomile. And then the next raised bed is lots of sage and basil and, you know, some tomatoes. But as far as like outside of the garden beds, there's lemon balm, there's herbs everywhere, medicinal herbs everywhere. One side of the garden is just natives. Like, I am very big no-till method, but with that, I have to remember that the more fertile our ground gets, the more everything is going to want to grow. And that includes things you don't want to grow. So again, I'll go back to the birds. When you put your bird feeders out and you put all those beautiful seeds that you buy from the store, all those seeds end up in my garden and they start growing. I'm telling you, I got all these sunflowers that I did not plant. I have all of these wheat plants, like just wheat growing in the garden that I have never planted before. I have tons of stuff that they want. Mulberry trees. We have mulberry trees in the area. So these birds eat the mulberries. I even have some in my yard. I can't tell you how many mulberry trees I have dug up out of our garden, and I sell them. I'll dig them up and I'll sell them. Oak trees, the acorns and stuff, they'll grow and I'll sell them too, or I'll give them away. So it's become this awesome thing because I'm like, I don't want them here. But at the same time, they're beautiful mulberry trees. Who doesn't want a mulberry tree? Like, I mean, so I'll go to the our little vendor events and I'll just pot them up and they grow quickly. So we'll sell them. So yes, it is definitely an experience when you walk through my garden. You will not see those awesome rows, although I do think it is so cool when I get to go to like a you-pick farm where you can pick your own veggies or pick your own blackberries or whatever, and they have those rows. It's honestly, that's an experience to me too, because it's just so cool. It just brings you back to that little red barn, you know, that you grew up seeing on the puzzles and on the paintings. So I think that's awesome as well. But for me, myself, my creative mind cannot do it.
Well, how about you, Sandy, on yours? Do you have rows in your garden or like
no.
raised rows?
No, I have a garlic patch, and the patch has rows, 5 rows of, I don't know, 20, 30 garlic. But that's just one little section. And then things will go this way, sideways and diagonally, and grow over hoops. And you have to carefully walk through my gardens. Because there's just, like Carmen says, if there's a space, I am going to plant something there. And there's always been this adage, this old saying about weeds that I've took to heart. And it said something about like 1 year's seedling, 1 year of having weeds, and you don't pull them, you're going to have 7 years of those weeds coming up. And so I've just always tried to pull them as they start to come up, you know. And I mean, it's constant because you don't want them very big because they're easy to pull then. And when you have no till, it's, for me, I think it's just so easy to pull out. Like Carmen says, how you can just dig into your soil. And it does take time. And you have to look at what works in your area. You know, like there's a book out that tells you about laying straw down. Now, in some areas of the country, this will work very well. You know, they'll use old hay, they'll use old straw, and the plants just grow and grow. But if you don't have enough humidity, if you don't have enough water, that is not the case. So you just have to talk to other gardeners, see what works for them. Like Carmen can use wood chips. I can't use wood chips, but I can use leaves. Some people can use old straw or old hay. You just have to know what works in your area.
Okay. Well, how
Okay.
about, I'm
Oh, I'm
sorry.
sorry. Yeah. So I was going to say that what you just said, Sandy, I guess I had thought about what Carmen did last year or 2 years ago, actually. And so 2 years ago, I grabbed some old hay that we always have piles of hay that the cows trample on and then leave. And we move our hay bales throughout the winter. And so there's always these like leftover circle, like crop circles in our pasture. And so we had a bunch of leftover hay. And so I grabbed buckets. I had my children help me grab buckets of hay and we brought them into the garden in the spring. And I was actually during the like early summer, I was actually taking chunks of old hay that was kind of damp, but not really. And I was piling it around the bases of my plants, not as much in the walkway. I kind of put it in the walkway because I wanted like pretty walkways like Carmen had, but I didn't have wood chips. So I was like, I'm going to make this pretty. Carmen has wood chips. I want to do hay. And so like that was my goal, right? And so I'm like the person that like lives on the streets, the version of Carmen. I'm like the street version of her. And so I'm getting like all the leftover junk in my pasture. And so, but I will tell you that the plants, and I only did half my garden because that was like all I had the energy to do. And the plants that I put all of that hay around the base of those pepper plants, they did so well because they retained the water. Because I water in the evening, it's like probably a big no-no, but here for me, that's what I have to do. Otherwise I will literally die, and I'm not waking up at 7 a.m. to water my garden. No. So 8 o'clock watering schedule is 8 p.m. is my thing, and all that water would be retained. I didn't have to deal with mold or anything problematic. They stayed like healthy through the summer. And I was floored because we had a really hot summer last summer. It was a drought. And last summer, I know I did that again. And I was so happy with that. But I didn't know that was going to work or not. I just figured, well, I'm going to try something. But I did that. So is that something I can do again? Like if I completely am no-till now, right? I've got all this chaos out there now. Where do I go from here? Like I've got literally grass out there. What do I do now?
Well, for me, and Carmen can say her opinion after this too, because she lives by you.
Yeah.
But I would literally mow everything down, or I'd take something that will lay the grasses down.
Okay.
And then I'd probably take as much hay as Eric will let you take, because you're not really going to have your big garden this year anyway. Just pile it on. Just let it sit there all through the summer, all through the fall, the winter, and then a lot of it will break down. And so then you can use your hay, just like Carmen is using her wood chips. Just push it apart, put a little plant in there, put some seeds in there, and let the things that you have right where you live work for you. So Carmen, what do you think?
I think you nailed it. I would have done the same thing. I would probably just had cut all that down. Just like cut it all down. If you could burn it, burn it. Cut it all down, just start all over, and then just throw all that hay on there. But I will say, I messed up. I don't remember if it was hay or straw. I messed up one year, and I was like, oh, they're using hay or straw, whatever I put on there. I still can't even tell the difference. Y'all are going to have to tell me the difference. But I like threw it on there. And I'm like, wait, what's going on? I like went outside and there were plants like green wheat or hay or I don't know, whatever the seeds come from that. They were everywhere. Took over like half my garden, and I'm sitting here overwhelmed, like, okay, so I just scrape all this out and throw it away, or what am I gonna do? It was so stressful for me. I was like, no. So I think what I ended up doing was just throwing cardboard or something. I had something, an old trampoline mat. I think I threw it on top of it and just killed all that germinated. Thankfully that helped and that worked. But that's kind of why I'm kind of traumatized and I won't do hay anymore, because I was just like, no, so it's just not my thing.
Well, the thing with it is you want to have it that it's what they call spent hay. You know, it's older. If it was going to sprout, it probably would have sprouted by then. So if you have newer stuff, when they bale that up, a lot of times they're baling the seeds and the weeds and everything with it. And so just ask Eric, Monica, for some really old stuff. And you can always lay something over top of it. White plastic, black plastic, cardboard, anything and just put wood or bricks or whatever to hold it down. And
So
it will
smother that. So once I put that old hay over top, then I can use some of the so we have like an old pool that people tear down their pools all the time. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we had torn down a pool, one of our pools gotten thrown into our trampoline. So it was destroyed. So we're just taking the chunks of the pool and we just lay that down to kind of kill the weeds each year.
Yeah.
In certain areas. So I can just put that over top of the old hay, because I do use old hay. But see, that's the thing with us, is we only used unfertilized hay. That's what you got, Carmen. You got unfertilized hay. And a lot of farmers use that, but a lot of farmers use fertilized hay. We just don't like to feed because we don't know what fertilizer people are using. We don't buy fertilized hay for our cattle. We just are really particular about that. And we have people that don't use fertilizers for the hay that we purchase. But I only used really old hay. Like this was like after it had been sitting like all winter, like it was just old and it was brown and it was like it was already starting to compost itself. And that's what I ended up using. Because I was just scraping it off the ground basically and throwing it in there, which is probably why it works so well. I'm telling you, it was like the ghetto version, okay, of like her nice, neat rows of wood chips. I was like doing it real ghetto.
Well, Monica, I know you're getting ready to close this out, but I do have to giggle because you had one that said, mow it down, and the other said, burn it down. So
Irma said, burn it. I'm like, we are literally in a drought 50% of our life, okay? And she's like, catch it on fire, honey. Just fire the whole thing. Just light it up.
I was about to say, that sounded too much fun. Let's just burn it. Like, when in doubt, just burn it.
I'm like, we don't just burn things, okay? Not unless it's in a metal barrel around here, okay? That is dangerous. Carmen obviously lives in the city right now, okay?
Look, it sounded serious, and y'all didn't see what I saw.
No,
You didn't see what's going
She's
on.
seen my garden firsthand, so.
Some of those weeds are legit like taller than me. Like,
yeah, I have some weeds out that are probably about 7 feet tall. I'm not kidding. I actually went out there yesterday and laid them down, and I thought I was walking on like wood. I thought I was breaking trees, small trees. They're really high. But okay, so till or not to till, I feel like we could still have an entire episode on exactly how to do this and how to start. So if you're interested more in hugelkultur and back to Eden gardening and no-till method, things like that, definitely let us know. Reach out in the comments, or reach out in our podcast on YouTube here. Reach out to us on any of our platforms and tell us, hey, we want more information on this, because we would love to do another episode on this if this is something that you're interested in. But in the meantime, it is time to wrap this episode up. Carmen, thank you so much for being here. We are so appreciative of just what you had to offer us and the knowledge and what you did and sharing all about your back to Eden gardening.
well, thank y'all. It was fun, and you guys are also so knowledgeable, and I learn every time I get on here.
Well,
I have to say before we wrap it up, I think Carmen, I was looking the other day, Carmen is actually the YouTuber that has been on the podcast the most in the 5 seasons that we've done it. She is the most visited guest host on the podcast. I just wanted to throw that out there because she's been in every single season. Just FYI.
That's cool. I didn't even know.
We love her so much. She just comes back every time. Well, thank you Thank you so much, Carmen. Super thank you. We just appreciate you so much. And, if you guys want to hear more about this, make sure you check us out. You can hit the LinkTree, and that's in the bio, I think, in our thing on the podcasty stuff, all that jazz. But look around wherever you're listening to us, look around the descriptions. You're going to find all the links you need to hit on. You can go to our YouTube channels. Each one of us have one. Make sure you go give Carmen at Jesus Love and Homesteader some love. She's over on YouTube, and she's in Facebook and Instagram and stuff. And so go give her some love and check her out. She's got a lot of great information out there, and we would love for you to connect with her. Otherwise, stay tuned and don't forget to check in on Fridays. We are live on our YouTube channel, Round the Hay Bale. We're doing a giveaway at 500. So make sure you come over there and subscribe, and stay tuned. We've got lots more coming up ahead. So until next time, we'll see y'all. Bye, y'all. Bye.
Are you enjoying our hay bale topics? To learn more, click on the LinkTree link to get all of our product recommendations along with discount codes and more.